I'm going to show you how to seam your two edges together. So I'm going to use my grey yarn again, just so you can see it really clearly. So you want to thread your sewing needle with a length of yarn. I'm going for about 50 centimeters. Okay, so we're going to start at the bottom edge. The first thing you need to do is identify where your edge stitch is, because you're going in between your edge stitch and the next stitch of your row. So let's have a look in here. So you see this column of V's here? That's one stitch in from the edge, and then this bit up here is my edge stitch. So I want to go in between these two. So if I pull my stitches apart, you can see this sort of rung of ladders. This is where we want to stitch. So with my yarn, I'm going to go under and then back out through to the front, the first horizontal rung between those two stitches. So now I've got it under one. I'm going to do the same on my other side. So if we have a look at it there, again, we've got our V, and we're going, if we pull this apart, we're going under the first horizontal rung between this V and the edge stitch. So now that we've gone under one rung on each side, we're going to go back under the next rung on the first side that you started on. So this should be directly above the last one, and I'm going to go in just here. So this type of seam is called mattress stitch, or you might also see it called vertical invisible seam. So it's just a really nice way of creating a really invisible join. So we've gone under our second rung on one side, going to go under the next rung on the next side, which is here. So you're basically going under the horizontal bars between your two edge stitches, and you're going up them one at a time. So your aim is to go under one on each side. But don't worry, if you do miss one, it doesn't have to be an exact science. We are just doing the best we can to get a nice neat join. So don't worry too much if it isn't completely perfect. When you pull the yarn together, you'll find that it closes up nicely, even if you have missed the odd one out. So now I've just pulled those ones tight. You'll see that you cannot see my grey thread at all. It's pulled those two stitches together really nicely, and that just looks like one of the other ribs along the row. So I'm just going to carry on. So if I've put my finger behind, you can kind of see those rungs a little more clearly. So we're just going under one on this side, then under one on the next side. So if you've worked in stocking stitch, your seam will be exactly like this. So you're going between the edge stitch and the first obvious V. If you're working in moss stitch like I am, it changes ever so slightly when we get to the top of the rib. So now I'm at the top of the rib, I'm going to work my first seam on the moss stitch section. So it's exactly the same process. We're going underneath this horizontal bar. It's just that this time the stitch next to it isn't necessarily going to be a V. Every other row it will be, but as you can see here, I've got my horizontal bump. So I'm going under here, and then the one on the next side is next to a V, so I'm going under there. and the same all the way up. So then if you pull your yarn, same as with the rib bit, if you pull it up, it just closes that up nicely and you get a lovely invisible join. So you want to pull it tight after sort of every 5 centimeters or so. This just makes sure that you're not gonna, if you wait until you've done the whole thing, it's gonna be quite tricky to pull it through the whole way and it might get a bit messy. So best to pull it tight every few rows. So just zip that up. So I'm nearly at the top, so I'm just carrying on in the exact same way right to the very top. So it gets a little trickier to see as you get closer to the top, so you might have to pop your hand inside like I'm doing. It is a little trickier. You might just need to wiggle your edges a bit around a little bit more to figure out where your edge stitch is. And then once you're at the top, you want to pull it tight one last time. And watch those stitches disappear again, just like that. And then you want to poke your needle and thread through sort of the last stitch you worked to. So we're going to just weave these ends in very similarly to how we did before. Because we've just done our seam here, I'm actually going to weave my end in going down the seam, so it's going to be really hidden. You won't see it from your knitting at all. So I'm literally just going through the different stitches down that seam for sort of a few centimeters, maybe 5 centimeters, a couple of inches, something like that. So you just want to make sure you've got enough of an end woven in that it's not going to come undone. And once you've done that, you can cut your yarn, and then you've just got the ends at the beginning edge. So you've got your cast on end, and the beginning of your seam. Now, a little thing I like to do, I'd like to tie them together first, just for a little bit of extra security. It's on the inside of your knitting anyway, so it's super subtle, no one's going to see it. And then you've got this really nice neat bit here that you can go up. So with the kind of rib seam, I like to pick one side of my rib stitch and then just go through each loop on that side for a few rows. So again, we're doing the same sort of amount. You just want to do quite a few centimeters, just so you've got a bit of security. and pull the yarn through, cut your yarn tail, and I'll do it for the final one.